Okay. Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to today's hearings. The Committee of Adjustment is appointed by Council to consider applications for consents and minor variances to the zoning bylaw. Please be advised that any applicant or agent that is in attendance in person at today's hearing for a specific application may leave the hearing once their application has been considered by the committee. Any applicant, agent, or member of the public wishing to address the committee for a specific application is reminded that presentations are limited to 10 minutes per person. Could I have a motion to adopt today's agenda? Strength and Ungerman. And with the planner, Andrew Clark, please read the resolution to adopt the agenda.
Moved by Member Strength, seconded by Member Ungerman. Be it resolved that the agenda of the Gravenhurst Committee of Adjustment meeting dated November 15, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you. And we will vote on that committee. And that carries. Thank you. Do any committee members have any comments with regard to the minutes to be adopted today? I always look at Mr. Sims first. No comments. Good. Could I have a motion to adopt the minutes from October 18th? Okay, Member Watson and Member Strength. And would the planner please read the resolution to adopt the minutes?
Moved by Member Watson, seconded by Member Strength. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Gravenhurst Committee of Adjustment meeting dated October 18, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, and please vote accordingly, committee. And that carries. Thank you. Do any committee members have a pecuniary interest in the applications being heard today? Seeing none. In accordance with Section 11 of the Committee of Adjustment Procedural Bylaw, I will now ask the Secretary Treasurer if they've received any requests for adjournment, deferral, or withdrawal from the applicant or agent for any application on today's agenda. You can do that?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I have not received any requests for deferral or adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you. The Committee of Adjustment will today consider one consent application and two minor variance applications under public hearings. The Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before the Committee of Adjustment decides whether or not to pass a consent or a minor variance. The public hearing serves two purposes. First, to present to the Committee of Adjustment and the public the details and background to the application. And second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a decision is made. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be used for the hearing. The planner will advise as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public hearing was circulated. The senior planner, Angela Jakatis, or our student planner, Chris Sun, will provide any other information that is relevant to the application and summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the applicant will be provided the opportunity to make a presentation, followed by questions or presentations from the public, either in favor of or against the proposal. Committee members will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the Secretary Treasurer, the Senior Planner, or anyone giving presentations. The proposed consent or variance will then be considered by the committee. If anyone from the public would like to receive a copy of the decision made on any application, please provide your name and email address due to the postal strike on one of the forms provided on the table at the back of the room. And would the planner please advise how, when, and to whom notices of the public hearings were circulated?
Notice of the public hearings concerning the proposed applications were sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 60 meters of the properties subject to the proposed consent or minor variance application and emailed to applicable agencies. Included with each notice was a summary of the application, a site sketch, and a key map showing the location of the property. The circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13.
Thank you. It's important to note that should committee approve any application, there's a 20-day appeal period during which time today's decision may be appealed. During this appeal period, no building permit may be issued or other work commenced. Also, in the event there is an appeal and in order to be kept advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing, members of the public must request to be sent a copy of committee's decision on the application. It should be noted that Bill 23 no longer allows third-party appeals. Only the applicant, the municipality, and certain public bodies will be able to appeal a minor variance or consent decision. We will now deal with the application for consent, and I now declare this to be a public hearing for application B-17, 2024 GR for 1121 Whitehead Road, Gravenhurst Limited. I'll now ask our senior planner, Angela Jakatis, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. The subject property is located northwest of the urban center on Lake Muskoka. It's accessed from the end of Whitehead Road, a municipally maintained road. It's zoned residential waterfront, RW60, and is RW60 subject to a special provision, 891, and it is designated waterfront area. You can see that the property is located at the end of a point of land. Surrounding land uses include residential waterfront properties on a variety of lot sizes. The proposal is to create one new vacant lot shown on the right of your screen, which is identified as the severed lot. Comments of no objection were received from the chief building official, the deputy manager of finance, fire and emergency services, as well as the District of Muskoka, who indicated that the appropriate development control techniques are needed to implement the recommendations of the site evaluation report that was done. And I would just note that those recommendations are included in the recommended conditions of consent. And we also received a letter of no objection from Gary and Joanne Foster, located at 1117 Whitehead Road. So just going through some photos, this shows a marker between the proposed severed and proposed retained lot. We are looking towards the existing dwelling on the retained lot, which that shows a better picture of it. This dwelling does have existing permissions through previous approvals, which will be carried forward in the concurrent zoning amendment. Just looking up from the from the dock, showing there are some gentle to moderate slopes on this retained lot. Around the other side, to the left side of the point, there is currently a two-story boathouse that's under construction. And then this is looking at the dock that's on the south side. So the two-story boathouse is on the west side of the property. This is looking at the dock that's on the south side of the property. And then again, turning and looking from that dock towards the severed lot, you can see the steep slopes that are on that severed property. Because of that, a site evaluation report was required as part of the submission for the consent. And amongst other things, the purpose of the site evaluation report was to confirm suitable access, suitable building areas, appropriate septic, and access to appropriate appropriate access to waterfront amenity areas. And again, this is just intended to show the extent of the slopes on that severed lot. So moving on to the proposed severed vacant lot, this is an existing path leading up to the slopes. And then just looking back down at the dock that we were standing on before, you can see hopefully this, or this slide is intended to show the differentiation in the height from the two pieces of land. So again, on the severed lot, this would be approximately the area of a building envelope on the proposed severed lot. Then this picture is taken moving out to closer to the point, and it shows what was identified in the site evaluation report as a potential amenity area. So right now there's chairs there, and you'll see why, I think, in the next slide. There's a spectacular view over Lake Muskoka, which can be seen for quite a distance. So there are chairs there right now. It's anticipated that would remain to be an amenity area with chairs, a patio, that type of thing. So again, just showing a different perspective of the potential building envelope on this severed lot. And as well, this indicates there is a, I don't have a picture of it, but there's a area of the eastern side of the slope that lends itself to accessing shoreline structures on the east side of the property. The slopes are a little bit more amenable to a walking path. So the recommendation from staff is to approve the consent with a number of conditions, primarily related to the standard conditions, as well as the site evaluation report and the concurrent official plan amendment and zoning amendment that are required. And just because I didn't address it in the presentation, or through the picture, sorry, I would just point out that the reason the official plan amendment is required is because the proposed retained lot, so the green lot on the left that contains the existing development, is less than 0.8 hectares, which the official plan stipulates that new shoreline lots are to have a minimum of 0.8 hectares. The proposed lot is 0.6 hectares, so the official plan amendment was therefore required. So when considering an official plan amendment, as outlined in the staff report, generally should consider conformity with the overall vision, principles, goals, objectives, and policies of the official plan, compatibility with surrounding uses, impacts on natural features, any financial implications to the town or on municipal services. And so as detailed in the report, in reviewing that criteria, staff are satisfied that with the implementation of the site evaluation report, that the environment, the lake environment will be protected. There's opportunities to improve water quality. The growth is maintaining and enhancing the environmental quality and character, is compatible with surrounding uses, and there will be no impact on municipal services. So staff are satisfied that the lot creation is appropriate. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Jakatis. And I assume Mr. Hunter is the applicant's agent. Please come forward. Of course, you know the drill. We need your name and mailing address for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Hunter from Planscape Inc. And the address is 104 Kimberley Avenue and postal code P1L1Z8. I actually do have a presentation, PowerPoint, very quick PowerPoint presentation. And Susan, I'm assuming that you'll just flip some pages to page. Oh, I've got it here. Okay. The middle one? Yeah, terrific, thank you. Again, very short presentation. I'm just going to flip through because Angela's dealt with most of the items that are on here. I just wanted to indicate that having worked with town staff over the last probably year or so to review the proposal and through pre-consultation, everything else, that we've submitted the application with a planning justification report as well as a site evaluation report. And we've reviewed, obviously, the staff report that was prepared that was before you. We support the evaluation that was undertaken and the recommendations from the report. I don't think there are any surprises from our own review and evaluation as well. The note that they're implementing the recommendations noted in both the planning justification report and in the site evaluation, and we will be requesting the committee's approval. I'm not going to go into any of the details on the site evaluation report. I think that Ms. Jakatis has dealt with those on it. Again, just to note that confirmed site suitability, confirmed the setbacks, and did actually recommend an increase in the shoreline buffer area, which is going to be carried forward in the zoning bylaw. Again, my conclusions, again, will reiterate what Ms. Jakatis has said. The application is consistent with the provincial planning statement. It conforms to the District of Muskoka official plan. It does satisfy the intent of the Gravenhurst official plan and will conform upon approval of the OPA for the lot area. The zoning amendment and site plan approval will again implement the recommendations from the site evaluation report. Both lots are suitable for shoreline residential development. In fact, the retained lot does have building permits for all of the construction on that particular site. And I believe some of you may recall that there was a minor variance application a couple of years ago for the location of the building, which actually pushed it back towards the rear lot line to maintain the open area of the shoreline. And again, in my opinion, the application represents good planning and is in the public interest. So with that, I'm just here to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hunter. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? We don't have anyone coming in remotely? Okay, and committee, the staff's recommendation is to approve this consent application, and do I have a motion to that effect? Member Watson and Member Sims. And Mr. Clark, will you please read the resolution?
Moved by Member Watson, seconded by Member Sims, be it resolved that having had regard for the matters prescribed under Section 5312 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, the consent be granted for application number B17 2024 GR 1121 Whitehead Road, Gravenhurst Limited, conditional upon the proper legal, registration, and mapping documents and fees be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. Cash in lieu of parkland dedication be paid to the town of Gravenhurst in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the vacant severed lot in accordance with the town of Gravenhurst Parkland Dedication Bylaw 9749. The official plan amendment 08 to the town of Gravenhurst official plan be adopted by council of the town of Gravenhurst and approval by the council of the District of Muskoka. That the zoning of the subject lands be amended to permit the proposed lot frontages and areas, carry forward previous approvals for the proposed retained lot, and implement the recommended shoreline buffer and parking/driveway setbacks of the site evaluation report prepared by Michalski Nielsen Associates Limited, dated August 20th, 2024. And finally, that the applicant enters into a consent agreement with the town of Gravenhurst under Section 5126 of the Planning Act in order to implement the recommendations of the site evaluation report prepared by Michalski Nielsen Associates Limited, dated August 20th, 2024.
Thank you. Committee. Go ahead, Mr. Ungerman.
Just one question. I didn't see who the applicant is. Am I missing something? Is it somewhere on the report?
Yes, I believe it's right at the top there, 1121 Whitehead Road, Gravenhurst Limited is the
Oh,
applicant.
I see. Okay, I was looking at that as the address.
That is the address, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
also a corporate entity.
Okay.
Mr. Sims, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm often a proponent and supporter of letters of support or input from the community. So it was interesting that there was a letter of support from a neighbor for this application. And it struck me as a little, it was a very pro forma letter of support for their friend, I guess, and neighbor. But it's unusual to have people supporting intensification. So it just was a little bit strange. But it actually is very timely because here in Muskoka, I think we're being told that YIMBYism is the new term. So yes, supporting intensification in my backyard rather. And this seems to be an example. It's very unusual to get people saying they want more neighbors. And that quiet forest that was beside us is now going to be developed. But what the heck? They say they want it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, seeing none. I'll just ask our senior planner if there are any recommendations as a result of these proceedings.
Staff would recommend that committee approve the application with the recommended conditions.
Okay, with nothing further, I'll call for the vote on this. And that carries. Thank you. And I now declare this public hearing to be concluded. We'll now deal with the applications for minor variances. I now declare this to be a public hearing for application A19-2024 GR for Burke. And I'll ask our senior planner, Angela Jacatis, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located on Miller Island on Lake Muskoka, near the western boundary of the municipality. It is a water access property, being on an island, and the mainland access is from Villas Marina off District Road 169. The property is zoned residential waterfront RW-6 and is designated waterfront area. You can see that the property is similar in size to many of the neighboring properties. The topography and vegetation of surrounding properties are similar to the subject property, and a broader review of aerial photography indicates that there are a variety of shoreline structures in this area, ranging from small docks to large boathouses. The application was submitted to permit the construction of a boat port to reconfigure existing docks and decks. So the requested variances are for 2 shoreline storage buildings where 1 is permitted, and for a maximum shoreline development of 270 square meters, where 232 square meters is permitted by zoning. A previous minor variance approval in 2019 was granted to permit shoreline development of 248.9 square meters. Comments received from the chief building official, the deputy treasurer, the infrastructure technologist, and the fire and emergency services department all indicate no objection. We did receive a letter, which I believe what committee received, from the neighboring property owner, Joan Bush. And just to summarize, she confirms that her understanding of the application is for a boat port would necessitate the removal of the permanent dock and the temporary dock that are attached to it on the other side of the property. It's not shown on this diagram, but you'll see them in the picture, in the upcoming pictures. And so she just wants to be clear that there would be no docks of any kind at that location. And I can just, so there's currently docks there. Ms. Bush's property is the neighboring property here. So again, in the pictures, it will become apparent the docks that she's referring to. So going through the photos, this first photo is taken, it shows the location of the proposed boat port. And there's also, you can see just behind it, the existing shoreline storage building. It's right here. So because that is classified as a shoreline storage building, even though it's on land, then again, the variance is to permit 2 shoreline storage buildings with the proposed boat port. So this is on shore, looking at the existing docks, which are to be replaced, and where the proposed boat port will be constructed. And then looking up at a portion of the dwelling with the decks in front of it where the red chairs are, though that deck is to be removed. It's included in shoreline development because it's within 20 meters of the shore, so that a portion of that deck is to be removed. It's just showing that deck again, and then looking over towards the west side of where the dwelling is, looking up at that, the other portion of the dwelling. And I would just point out, I think it's noted in the staff report that the configuration of this dwelling is somewhat, it's unusual. It's a result of addressing some illegal construction by a previous owner. This goes back probably about 20 years. So there was there's a link between the 2 areas of construction to result in one dwelling, hence the unusual shape of the building. So this is the dock structure that is to be removed and needs to be removed as part of the application. You can see the dock as well as the letter from Mrs. Bush referred to temporary Sea-Doo docks. You can see them on the right side of the photo. So that all has to be removed as part of the application. And then standing on those docks, looking back over towards the area of the docks that are to be rebuilt with the boat port. And this just shows again, those temporary docks, which will need to be removed, the ramp to the dock, all of that will need to be removed. And this photo is showing the shoreline vegetation that's on the property and that screens much of the development from the water. Then looking to the east is the neighboring property and their development. And that concludes the presentation, and staff would recommend that committee approve the application.
Thank you, Ms. Chikatis. And at this time, I'd like to advise that the applicants, Gail and Adam Burke, have also joined the meeting electronically and are available to answer questions. And Michael Winston is another agent for the applicant. I'm sorry?
Steve Fauner's going to go.
Oh, Steve Father. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I skipped ahead here. This time I'll ask for comments from the agent, Stephen Fauner, who's registered to address us electronically. Sorry about that. There's Mr. Fauner. So please.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Jorgensen. Good morning, everyone. Steve Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 1A4. I'm here representing Gail Burke in this particular application, and as you noted, she's present along with Mike Winstone, who did the site plan and the elevation drawing for this application. I'd first like to thank staff for the positive report and note thanks for their patience regarding this application. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to try and share a screen here, so I know that this is a fairly new system for you, and it's even newer for me. So I'll see what I can do here. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see this? Hopefully you can see this.
I'm just wondering if you want to maximize that for us, Mr. Fawner.
Oh, it's maximized on my screen. Um,
Maybe if you just click on the slideshow from beginning, it'll go.
Okay, I'll try. I tried that. I thought I had. So, okay, so I'm slideshow from beginning. Does that show any better?
Now, I think it's legible for the most part, but it is not full screen.
Oh.
It's okay.
Okay.
Okay,
all
well,
right.
we can,
Well,
we'll have, go ahead.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Mr. Fawner. If you want, I can share the presentation from my system if that's better. Just one moment.
There we go. So you can go ahead now, Mr. Fawner.
okay, I guess I haven't been able to see it on this. I guess I'll have to, somehow I'll have to stop sharing because I can't see what you have.
You just, are you able to do that? Can you see your own presentation now?
Okay, I think so anyways. Yeah. Go ahead, Susan. Next slide. Okay, now I can see it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your patience on that. I think we know the essence of the proposal here. It's for two items, two variances, one to shoreline development area and the other to shoreline storage building, because the boat port is classified as a shoreline storage building. And of course, that's what we're trying to add in this particular case. Next. So this is the existing site plan, and it shows that the northwest dock in front of the dwelling is to be removed. Also, a portion of the deck that Angela pointed out is to be removed. The other red structure being the dock is the existing dock. Next. And you'll see outlined in green, this is the proposal, and the dock is being enlarged somewhat. It's in essence really taking the dock in front of the dwelling and sort of adding it to this structure, moving it over. Next. And this is the boat port elevation drawing. And again, it's over the same two slips that are there now. And in fact, the area under the overhang is part of the current dock that exists, or it's the same area. And then we have a slight enlargement to the outside of that. Next. So this is the property as seen from the water. Like collectively, this is almost the entire frontage. Next. And this is closing in on the existing dwelling. And again, the dock in front of the dwelling that is to be removed. Next. And we have the existing dock as I saw it. This was in the middle of summer. Next. And this is just showing the dock itself. Next. And once again, the dock. Next. And this is looking back to the storage building on land that Angela had pointed out in her presentation. Next. And once again, this is just a shot from shore showing the dock that is to be removed. Next. So in terms of planning analysis, the town limits a number of boat ports to one per property, of which of course this would be the only one, and the shoreline buffer is not being impacted by this application. Next. And I just wanted to point out here that at the very bottom, I just want to make the point as if we were using a sliding scale in this case of 3.87 square meters per meter of frontage, which gives you the maximum that you have in your bylaw. We would actually, if that were the way the bylaw was written, then we would be actually allowed 375 square meters, which is much greater than what we're proposing here. Next. The proposed board is covering existing slips. This isn't a totally new structure by any means. Again, where it's a boat board covering existing slips. There will be an increased side yard setback, a grade increase. From the current side yard setback to the west is less than just under 6 meters, and it's going to be approximately 48 meters once we're finished this. Next. And the width of the docks is actually being reduced overall in this proposal. Proposed lot coverage is well within the maximum 13%. We have 7.74. And the amount of shoreline buffer occupied by structures and pathways is 16.82, so certainly less than the 25% target. Next. And I think the boat port is it's an attractive size. We don't have a deck on top of the boat port, which would add additional impact to the neighbor to the southeast. The boating pattern is going to be exactly the same because the boat slips are the same as what's there now. Next. And I believe neighbors' comments, I don't believe they were objecting per se, but just wanted clarification that what's going to be removed in front of the cottage is going to be removed. And that's certainly the intent, and the town does have ways of enforcing that. Next. I'm not going to go through all of the 4 tests of a minor variance, but I'll just pick out one from each of these in terms of the general intent of the official plan. The bottom one there is that, in my opinion, and this is shared by staff, that the boat port will not lead to build form dominating the natural form. Next. And in terms of maintaining the general intent and purpose of the bylaw, I would note the side yard setback is improving greatly, and lot coverage is well within the maximum permitted. Next. And is it desirable for development the property? The shoreline buffer is not being affected, and the overall scale is consistent with development in the immediate area and on Lake Muskoka. Next. And lastly, is the proposal minor? And in my opinion, yes, it is. Usually when you consider minor, you consider impacts. And I would suggest the impact of this boat port, which is covering the existing slips, is minimal. And that concludes my presentation. And thank you very much for your help there, Susan. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fauner. And as we said previously, the applicants are here available to answer questions, but Michael Winstone is another agent for the applicant. So if you'd like to join us, turn your microphone and video on and proceed with your comments.
I don't have any additional comments. I was just here to field any questions, should there be any.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm
That's
just,
good. That's good. We'll move on then to questions or comments from members of the public, and I don't see any, and none have registered to enter electronically. So thanks for that. So committee then, the staff's recommendation is to approve this application. We'll have a motion to that effect from Member Ungerman and Member Watson. And I'll ask Mr. Clark to please read the resolution.
Moved by Member Ungerman, seconded by Member Watson. Be it resolved that application number A19-2024 GR Burke be approved and that the necessary notice of decision be prepared.
Thank you. Okay, committee, it's our turn. Any questions or comments on this? Mr. Watson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly support this application in its entirety. I just have a question for staff. The removal of the dock is fine. Where do we stand and this is for interest's sake, as far as Sea-Doo docks? I know they're portable. They come out for the winter and things like that, but do they show as structures within the proposal?
Thank you for the question. So with something like Sea-Doo docks, if someone they weren't identified as part of the existing shoreline structures on the mapping that we had, but we would consider that the Sea-Doo docks do have to come out and do count towards shoreline development. It's similar to a floating dock. If it's, it typically comes out in the winter, but still has to meet side yard setbacks. And I think without speaking on behalf, I'm not intending to speak on behalf of the neighbor, the person who wrote the letter, but I think that's part of the concern because the addition of, in this case, the Sea-Doo docks encroached further into the setback or perhaps even over the lot line of her property, resulting in that additional boating impact. And one thing that I neglected to say through my presentation was that one of the reasons, one of the main reasons that staff are able to support this application is the consolidation of the shoreline structures and as a result, the shoreline activity area. So it's, instead of the shoreline activity area being spread out over two separate areas, it's consolidating it into one area and removing sort of shoreline activity area from that location and allowing that area to potentially renaturalize.
Mr. Sims, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question actually follows up on the very prescient question from Mr. Watson. And I think this is directed, Angela, for clarification, is you referred to them as temporary docks. And for a floating dock, my understanding was that one needs a building permit for approval of a floating dock. Does that apply to something like a jet ski?
Another good question. I'm not sure that I know the answer to it. Certainly a floating dock, depending on the size, would require a building permit. I don't believe that the structure that we're talking about here would require a building permit. But I think it's important to remember that all structures still have to comply with zoning. So even if the building permit isn't required, then there's still the zoning to be considered.
May I follow up? But this sort of takes us down a rabbit hole of questions, and I'm not actually questioning the decision or the recommendation of staff on this application. That I'm in support, but I'm just curious about these matters. So rather than a floating receptacle support for the jet ski, if it was a fixed structure, then would that, so for example, an aluminum lift, would that also correspond to being part of the docking system? And I guess the reason I'm raising that question is that it would appear that and including the comments from the neighboring property owner, is that certainly it would mean that there's a vessel being secured there. Does that mean it is a boating slip?
Thanks for that question. What I can tell you is that in a situation, if we were asked about a situation like that, we would ask for the applicant to provide a sketch, and then we would evaluate it with the building department and determine how it fits into zoning and permits. It's not always black and white, so therefore, typically in a situation like that, we'd ask for more information to be able to provide an appropriate and consistent answer so that we make sure that we're providing consistent answers. Because I think the reason you're asking is the same that we struggle with. It's not necessarily straightforward.
if I could, may I continue the dialogue? I won't drag this on too long, but you know, that for many personal properties, I'm not sure that the number of boating slips is mandated or regulated, but it is for commercial properties. And it happens to be one of my own personal bugaboos of commercial businesses that are not as forthcoming in the number of slips, the number of vessels that can be accommodated. And so that's where clarification of what defines a boating slip, whether it's a place for a vessel to be secured, I think does need to be clarified in the bylaws. And that, so I guess I'm looking at both planners so that when these changes are made to the comprehensive zoning bylaw, that's something that I think needs to be addressed. And this has come up even not just in my own local neighborhood, but it's something like the Taboo expansion plan had many boating slips that were actually going to be lifts because of the very shallow nature of the bay. And once something's up on a aluminum lift, is that still a slip? I mean, I think that's the sort of thing that I think needs to be clarified and grappled with at some point. So I'll stop.
I would say so noted, and I think staff are listening to that. So always a clarification of definitions, I think, is a good thing. Mr. Sims, is there something further?
Well, yes, one further question. The letter of clarification from the neighbor, Ms. Bush, asked to be, wanted to know if there were answers, and specifically asked that she be clarified or to let know. And what's the process for letting her know the answers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so committee's aware, we did have a conversation, and I think that everything was clarified in that conversation. But in addition, she will be sent a notice of committee's decision.
Anyone further, committee? I have, I mean, just in lieu of the questions about the personal watercraft, we won't get brand specific here. I'm wondering if the applicant could enlighten us as to what their intent is for dealing with the personal watercraft, if any, because I think it sounds germane to the conversation. So I'm wondering if either the Burks or Mr. Winstone or Mr. Fauner, somebody wants to jump in there and tell us what how you're handling any personal watercraft with the new arrangement. I see Mr. Fauner.
Yeah, I'll take the first crack at this, and certainly the applicant may wish to chime in on this. It's my understanding, certainly when I looked at the drawings, that the Sea-Doo lift was not there and was not really being considered. I think around the new dock that is being proposed, again, you don't have to have a lift for a Sea-Doo or a Sea-Doo dock. They can be docked at at the current docks, and I think that there's enough room around the new dock that they'll be able to find a location for the Sea-Doos to be moored. So I don't believe that that's an issue to take away that one Sea-Doo dock there.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the applicant, if they want to comment on that at all? And I do. Okay, I see Gail Burke here. Do I have to? Okay.
Hi, I see that the Burks have their hand up, so just go ahead and speak. Hit the talk icon at the bottom of your screen when you're ready.
Can you hear us now?
That's
Hello?
good. Yes, that's good now. Go ahead.
No, the intent was to move the Sea-Doo ramps around because there is a fair amount of space. We used to have the Sea-Doos tied to the side of the existing dock that's there. And with the boat traffic, wakeboard boats in particular, they get banged around a lot. And so I think the conversation that you've been having around the use of ramps is a relevant one. But for those that do have Sea-Doos, it's really difficult to maintain the Sea-Doos just tied up against the dock, which is the structure. It was what we had before. We had whips and used those to attach the Sea-Doo ramp. So a couple of years ago, we went to the ramps from whips because the boat traffic did a lot of damage both to the dock and to the Sea-Doos. So the intent is to move those around on the east side of the dock.
Okay, just for clarity then, so that, does that change any of the configuration of what we are seeing in terms of docking area and the rest of it? Because are the ramps considered part of that shoreline structure configuration, I guess is the question. Perhaps Ms. Jakatis, can you comment on that?
Thank you. Yes, any ramps and would be incorporated into it. So I would put it back to the applicant, perhaps the designer, the agent, to clarify further how that's intended to be incorporated.
Okay, thank you. I see Mr. Winstone has requested. So go ahead, Mr. Winstone. You can just press your talk button, and there you are.
Hi there, how you guys doing? So I guess I just have a question and maybe a way that we can handle the possibility moving forward as well for, temporary Sea-Doo lifts like this one, for example. Maybe we could adopt some type of, I understand within reason, and there's definitely a case in point for having too much along the shoreline, but perhaps we can use the MNRF guidelines or something similar to handle these sort of temporary docking structures where MNRF requirements for work permits and or et cetera have to deal with in contact with lake bed. That now dictates it as a permanent structure. As a designer on my side, if we're now going to require site plans and or permits for a temporary floating Sea-Doo dock, you go to the Cottage Life show, there might be 500 docks sold every year, which now by essence is 500 site plans and 500 building permits for something that is attached to the side of a dock with 2 pins. So maybe there's I understand a floating dock is permanently affixed to shore. That is something different. But where a Sea-Doo dock is something that is temporarily attached to the side of a dock, maybe that's something to consider. So this specific, I don't have a good example, but maybe there's some consideration for how that gets handled.
Ms. Jakatis, do you have any further comments on that at this point? So it sounds like the ramps that are currently in use and attached to that dock that's going to be removed will still be in play here. Is that what I'm hearing by the sound of it? Yeah. Mr. Jakatis, do you want to comment? No? Nothing further?
Should committee choose to approve the variance as has been circulated, committee does not have the ability to approve something a number greater than what was circulated. So if committee chooses to approve it, then the applicant will have to work within that. The applicant has the choice to request that it be recirculated, but the application that's before us today is the 270.5 square meters of shoreline development.
And to clarify, the Sea-Doo ramps would be included in that number? Yes
So
or
I
no?
think this is a perfect example of why something like that should be included. And if we look at the letter from the neighbor and those structures or ramps in that location was impactful on their property. So I think that illustrates why the they're not just exempt from the zoning bylaw, are in compliance with the zoning bylaw. If there's a way for the applicant to, again, part of the reason for recommending approval is by consolidating that activity and getting it more in front of the subject property and away from the neighbor's property. So it's not, that's a positive thing. But then the number that's being put forward is the number that's being requested is what is being considered by committee today.
Thank you. Again, just to be perfectly clear here then, that the number that should committee approve this today, the number of this square meter area of shoreline structures would have to include the Sea-Doo ramps if they are being retained, i.e. potentially have to reduce the size of the dock to, if those structures have not been included in the number, if you will. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And Mr. Fawner has requested to speak on this matter. So I'll let.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just hoping I could make a suggestion that I have not had an opportunity to discuss this with my client, and of course I don't really want to do that sort of an open session and take up more time, but I'm just going to suggest that there's a couple ways of dealing with it, but I will have to speak to my client. They could, for example, use a portion of what would be approved, a portion of the dock, and that portion that sticks out, if you will, to the northwest, a portion of that could be used for a Sea-Doo dock. There's also the area at the back of the slips. There's quite a bit of area there, and I have seen people who have arrangements where they actually can pull Sea-Doos right up onto the dock. Now, it does take a winch to do that, but that's a possibility. But I would like to talk to my clients because they may wish to have the matter deferred. If they want to have the Sea-Doo docks added in, then of course that's going to require recirculation. So, and then go back through this again. So I would like to discuss the options with my clients, but you do have another hearing after this one. If I just get on the phone with them and have a quick telephone call, we could possibly have something come back to you at the end of your next hearing, if that works.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, did you have comments?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have no problem with Mr. Fawner speaking to his clients in regards to a way that we can get this application looked after today and get it cleared up. I would like to say that I'm a little concerned when somebody says that the Sea-Doo docks are irrelevant. They are relevant, and neighbors are concerned that the Sea-Doo docks may take up and add to it the existing square footage that we're allowing in this. I mean, I'd support the application as it is right now with the amendment saying no attached Sea-Doo docks. And they can go back to tying up their Sea-Doos the way it used to, the way they used to have it. Maybe they'll be more protected the way the dock is, I don't know. But they are relevant, and it is something to be considered by this committee.
So in terms of procedure here, I mean, Mr. Fawner has requested really that we suspend this public meeting for a time, and it's not. We can take a recess. I think that's probably. I think that'd be the best approach here. And Mr. Fawner, would like a 5-minute recess be, or 10-minute recess be sufficient for you to speak with your? I think the issue here is that it seems clear that the Sea-Doo ramps must be included in the shoreline development area. So however that gets handled, we, as a committee, we need to know that it is being handled, I guess. So if you can give us an answer to that, otherwise our option would be simply to defer. I would believe to a further meeting. So, Mr. Fauner, if you could let me know that, would a 10-minute recess be sufficient for you?
Excuse me, Mr. Fauner, we can't hear you. You just have to turn your microphone on, please.
Oh, you were there for a second.
Mr. Fauner, you have to turn it on again. When it's showing red, that means you're permitted to speak. Sorry, Steve, you're not, we can't hear you. Oh, there we
There
go.
you go. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I was pushing the wrong button, I'm sorry. Yeah, 10 minutes would be fine, yes. We
Okay,
could have a
let's
10-minute
do
break.
that. So
We'll
let
have
me-
a quick discussion, yeah.
We will come back then. Let's just say 10:15.
So if all of you want to just stay in the meeting where you are, just make sure that your cameras and microphones are turned off if you're going to be speaking. And I'm just going to put up a sign that the meeting is in recess. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll see you back at 10:15. Thank you. Okay, sorry for the delay there. We are back, and I'm wondering, Mr. Fauner, do you have some comments at this point?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the additional time, and I did discuss this with my client. I guess the one thing that we're dealing with here is that they do have a contractor lined up to complete the work, so it is a bit time sensitive for them. We were hoping this was going to actually get on the October meeting, and it didn't make it. So anyways, so time is a bit of a factor. So what we'd like to request of committee is that they approve the application today as submitted, but we do not want the condition of no CDU docks, because they would like to have the option of, within that green area that would be approved, that they could have a CDU dock if they wish. Yeah, they want to protect their investments and their CDUs, so that is important to them, but they are willing to live within the approved shoreline development area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Jakatis, did you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The resolution that was read is that the application be approved, so it's not specifying how that docking is laid out. To Mr. Fauner's question or comment, if the applicant wants to work the CDU ramps into the area that's shown on the drawing, then that's the applicant's option. Should committee approve the application?
Yes, so I guess the message there is that the shoreline development square meters, as outlined, would have to include all structures, including any CDU ramps. Correct? Okay, and that seems to be what Mr. Fauner was suggesting they could do. Question then, Member Strang?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I look at the drawing, Mr. Fauner, of the boat port,
I'm just wondering if are we able to bring that up so we could see what it is we're talking about.
so Mr. Watson and I think we're going to ask the same question, but what I'm curious is there's a little green tab off of the slip. Is that what you're suggesting is going to become the CDU docking area, or like replacing that with CDU docking instead of regular docking?
I believe that you're speaking about the area that's not hatched, that's outside of the hatched area. Yes, that's the area I was referring to, that could be, a portion of that could be for a CDU dock, but we would again remain within the area that's approved for the shoreline development area.
Okay, is everyone clear on that? Okay. Any further comments or questions? Just a question I had, Mr. Jakatis, and it's unrelated to this. In terms of the items that need to be removed, i.e. the decking and the other dock, is that a condition of getting a building permit that those structures are removed prior to that, or what's the timing of that?
Thank you for that question. The building permit would not, they would have to submit demolition permits at the same time as the building permits, and that would all have to be addressed because otherwise it wouldn't be in compliance with zoning, it wouldn't be in compliance with the site plan agreement also. Sorry, I should have mentioned first, the site plan agreement has to be updated to reflect the proposal that you're considering today.
Okay, thank you. So there is some time factor there as well, but, so the demolition permit would need to be applied for, but not necessarily the actual demolition done before construction starts on the new dock, is that,
That's correct.
okay? Anything further, committee? Okay, well, we have a resolution on the table then to, I guess, Ms. Jakatis, sorry, I should ask again, just if anything has changed in your recommendation based on these proceedings.
Staff would continue to recommend that the application be approved, and again, just based on the consolidation of the existing structures into one area.
Okay, thank you. So we'll call for the vote on this, committee. And that carries. Thank you. I now declare this hearing to be concluded.
Thank you, committee. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Fauner. Okay, moving on. I now declare this to be a public hearing for application A20-2024 GR for Metcalf. And I'll now ask the student planner, Chris Sun, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Just need a minute, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the subject property is located southeast of the urban area of Gravenhurst within the settlement area of Cluey's Bay. The property is accessed via North Cache Lake Road, which is municipally owned and maintained. It is designated rural settlement area in the official plan and zoned residential community RC4. The property currently features only a gazebo. Neighboring properties consist of other single detached dwellings on similarly sized lots featuring similar terrain, vegetation, and development characteristics. Comments of no objection were received from the Deputy Chief Building Official, Deputy Fire Chief, and Deputy Treasurer. No public comments have been received to date. The application has been submitted in order to permit the construction of an attached deck to a proposed dwelling, a minimum front line setback of 8 meters, where 12 meters is required. The request represents a variance of 4 meters from the minimum front yard setback. And taking a look at some pictures, first facing east, you can see the front gravel driveway for the proposed dwelling and the attached deck. Things to note here, that's the neighboring property and the change in elevation for the driveway here, and as well as some small ferns and trees. Moving the camera slightly to the right, you can see North Cache Lake Road looking east. And then this is North Cache Road looking west. Note the parking area immediately to the right here. Where we have the truck parked. Now looking northeast, taking a closer look at the neighboring property, note that the stilts and the foundation used here would be very similar to the proposed attached deck development. These ones there. And here is just another picture of the gravel driveway, which slopes down towards the road. Turning the camera left, you can see the other neighboring property to the west. Note that the extent of this deck addition would not extend beyond the neighbor's deck. In addition, you can see the stakes marking out the footprint where the proposed deck will be constructed. It's hard to see, but there's a stake here, and then there's a line as well, or a piece of string marking out the building envelope. And here's just another angle of the proposed development location. Note that you can see the gazebo at the back. It'd be just this one there. And the proposed location would be just this area up at the top. Standing on the gravel parking area at the bottom of the property, looking up, you can see the overall view of the parcel. From this view, it is not expected for the development to affect road sidelines and maintenance. Note here the uneven rocky surfaces and ferns. And here's just a different angle of looking at the side profiles of the lot. As detailed in the staff report, planning staff are satisfied the proposal meets the 4 tests of the minor variance. Staff would recommend the approval of this application. That concludes this presentation.
Thank you. Do the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? I don't see anyone here, or no one has requested to join electronically. And similarly, I guess there's no questions or comments from members of the public, seeing as we don't have any at this point. Committee, so the staff's recommendation in this case is to approve this application. Is there a motion to that effect? Member Strength and Member Sims. And I'll ask Mr. Clark to please read the resolution.
Moved by Member Strang, seconded by Member Sims. Be it resolved that application number A20-2024 GR Metcalf be approved and that the necessary notice of decision be prepared.
Thank you. Committee, any questions, comments on this? Mr. Sims, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just seeking clarification on the plan that was, the schedule that was attached. It says the building was removed. So I sort of missed that from the photos. Is there no building on site?
So yeah, so there was a former dwelling on this property. It was removed because the foundation was like falling apart. And so there's a proposed dwelling now, but it's not part of this application, which will be part of, there will be attached deck to that dwelling for this. Yeah, if that answers the question.
Yeah, there will be a proposed dwelling coming onto the property
I think they already have the
in future. Yeah, okay. It's interesting, the details are on here. I mean, this is very intense, dense development. With the septic for area, for example, right down to the road area. And it was very helpful, Chris, to show the proposed deck relative to the neighboring properties, because it appears, from my interpretation, that it's not that this is quite consistent with the neighboring areas. So that's one of the reasons I guess I'm supportive.
Okay, anything further? Committee? Anything further? No? No, sir. No? We're good? Okay. I'll ask our student planner if there are any recommendations as a result of these proceedings.
Staff would recommend the approval of this application.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call for the vote. Committee? And that carries. Thank you. I now declare this public hearing to be concluded. As there is no further business noted on the agenda, could we have a motion to adjourn? Watson and Strength. And we'll vote on that. And that carries. Thank you. I now declare this meeting to be adjourned at 10:35 a.m. Thank you very much.